Hey man, I thought I would do you a video to talk about these minor scales a little bit. It would be easier than trying to type something out and explain it. So your question was essentially the difference between the natural minor, the harmonic minor, and the melodic minor, and how to use them and if they were important. So first of all, they kind of are important, but depending on the style of music that you play, I mean, if you just love AC/DC, then maybe they're not so important. I mean, pentatonic scale will take you a long way. I mean, if you love ZZ Top and that's all you love, then you don't need the minor. You could just play pentatonic scale and it would be fine. But the pentatonics can be powerful. I mean, the added notes to the pentatonic, and that's something that's important because usually, almost always, these minor scales, look like pentatonics with notes added to them. So you could still play pentatonic, and then you add notes to it. But anyway, let's look at the scales. So one of your questions was they all start from the same root. And essentially, yeah. I mean, there are other ways to think about it, but the way we want to think about it is starting from one note. So we're going to start from an A, that's the 5th fret of the 6th string. And I'm going to play some of these scales. So one scale you asked about was the natural minor. Now, the way that I think about any scale is in relationship to the major scale. So a natural minor is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then the root again, 1. And then you can continue whatever kind of fingering plan you want to have. The harmonic minor is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and has a regular 7. Now that sound obviously sounds a little bit Middle Eastern or maybe Spanish. And so we do hear it some in like heavy metal music, but in particular, Randy Rhoads and Yngwie, the guys who were classically influenced, you're going to hear that sound. You don't hear that sound in the blues very much, for example. Melodic minor is really interesting because when we do this same thing with the major scale, what we find out is that the melodic minor is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's a major scale, but it just has the flatted third, and that's it. It's much less used in pop and rock music. It's a really common scale in jazz, but it was used on the intro to Paint It Black. That is the scale that they played. To answer your one question, for a guitar player who's playing rock or pop or jazz or whatever, you do go up the melodic minor and down also the same. You don't go back to the natural minor. So you would go up with the raised notes and back down. And don't change them. Because we're always playing over a certain chord and when we play that scale. And so that chord doesn't change whether we're going up or going down with our line that we're playing. So always just keep the same fingering and don't worry about lowering the notes. That comes from a different time when the chords were derived from the scales, and these days we derive the scales from the chords. The chords are what's driving everything now. Okay, so I think that's all the questions you ask about that. There's also another minor scale you can think about, Dorian. Okay, Dorian, which is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, regular 6, flat 7. And that scale actually does get used quite a bit. Both the natural minor is the sound of Black Magic Woman by Santana. And Dorian, he played on Oye Como Va. I got a weird, mustache pokey sticking out there. Anyway, So, you know, he's playing kind of Latin tinged music and he is using some of these scales. But if we really look at the music of someone, say like Stevie Ray Vaughan, who plays the blues but does play a lot of notes, we find the Dorian being one of the primary modes that he plays, of the minor ones anyway. So you could play a pentatonic scale and then add in the notes of the Dorian. And we hear that in his playing, and Jimi Hendrix playing, a lot of players, certainly a lot of the players in the 80s who were playing kind of this bluesy style, but, you know, Van Halen oriented kind of style. So Warren DeMartini, Jakey Lee playing shreddy type blues, you know, blues mixed with shred licks, because having three notes on a string lets you do that sort of more shreddy oriented stuff, patterns or whatever, tricks. And so they could play their pentatonic licks and then go into three notes per string and get some more things. So in a nutshell, if you worked on the natural minor, the Dorian, that would be enough if you just want to work on some scales other than the pentatonics, although you don't need to. The harmonic minor is more important if you like, you know, neoclassical metal, Yngwie or Randy Rhoads or whoever. There's a lot of guys in that genre. And the melodic minor is not so important. You would use it a lot if you were playing funk or R&B and playing some music with some more intricate chord progressions, but in regular rock and roll, you don't need that. You don't need that mode. So hopefully that answers your questions. And if you have more, don't hesitate to ask me, and I'll try to help you. All right, cool.